Riley joined, Bounty joined, Joy's in.
It says it's muted you. Let's see.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Regular board meeting for March 22nd to order at 7:06 p.m. Roll call, please, Ms. Pertinio.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Present.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Here.
Mr. David Bradley,
Here.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Here.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Here.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik, Gail Mahalik, absent, Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Here.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
He will be joining us late.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larry Stern.
Here.
So this is one of the documents they gave us for review. Here's page 35. Here's page 62.
There was an exec session prior to this
64. You get the idea.
Contract
It's a mess.
negotiation information. We do have there's someone who's off mute that is making a lot of noise in the background. Can you tell who that would be, please? Thank you.
Mr. Stern, Ms. Mahalik, I'm going to bring in as a panelist. She's came in through an attendee. She should be able to come in. So Ms. Mahalik should be able to join us.
I think the background noise is coming from Mr. Belts. Is that correct?
Probably good.
Yep.
That was me. Sorry, I must have muted. I thought I'm
Thank you,
apologize.
Rusty. Yeah, as I said, we're always in an executive session for contract information. Public comment on agenda. I believe we have one public comment. That would be Ms. Bose. Mr. Cleaver, could you please facilitate that?
Ms. Bose?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The first motion I wanted to speak on was motion B, the payment of the bills. I'm trying to look at my notes here. In the February report, the total was paid of $331,189. That was the total paid. The bill being approved for payment this month is February's bill of $43,429. Now, I looked back at the finance meeting and the attachments presented. There was no bill approved for January 2021. we skipped from the December bill approved in February to the February bill presented in March. I also looked back at the finance meeting recordings, and there was no January transportation bill that was presented. Whoa! The November bill was paid in the January payment of bills, December bill that was paid in February payment of bills. Now we jump to February bill being paid in March. I realized that there was no in-person instruction for quite a bit of January, but in-person instruction resumed on January 19th. Is there a transportation bill for January?
Yes, there is, Ms. Bose. There was a computer issue with George's, and they
Okay.
never submitted us the bill.
All right,
And it will be on the next finance committee meeting for approval.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next motion is motion J for the agreement with the Meadows Psychiatric Center. Is this a new provider?
This is not a new provider. This is a center to where our students can be assigned from the hospital, for example, if they go and get evaluated. This is a location where our students may be, placed based upon a doctor recommendation or a team recommendation from the psychiatric unit, and we are still responsible for meeting their educational needs. So that's what this agreement is. We have one also too with Kids Peace as well, and different organizations that offer psychiatric assistance. Unfortunately, we're finding we have to go farther and farther outside the scope because beds are becoming harder and harder.
Okay, well, that's why I was asking, because I don't remember this particular provider in the past. Motion K for the GASB 75 Valuation Services. I've not seen this in the past. What services are actually provided for the amount charged? It was kind of convoluted in what I read. What will we be actually receiving?
They do valuation services. It's required by public entities to provide these information to the state. So they
Right.
provide valuation services on our post-employment benefits, such as medical, dental, vision, hearing or disability insurance, life insurance that we provide to retirees.
Right,
We put it on the board as an approval. It's something the district's been paying for all along. But we did feel it was good information to have out there and have the board at least put their stamp of approval on.
okay, so it was a contract that we've had in the past that wasn't approved by the board, but now it is, correct?
I don't know if they've ever been on there in the past.
I don't believe they have been. They were just done through the business office. I believe they have not been on there. Now, they are part of the audit, I believe, Mr. Eric, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So the information's on our audit reports, but this is a service that we wanted to get board approval for.
Okay, thank you for that. And then on motion D on personnel, we have 2 people resigning. I assume we're going to replace the middle school, high school music teacher, but what about the psychologist? Will we replace that position?
Yes, we are planning to replace that in post. Actually, the anticipated vacancy is posted now, and we have had 3 school psychologists in the past, and we have since been operating the last several years with 2. When we
Right.
brought the 2 social workers on board, we went from 3 to 2 school psychologists.
Okay, so we will be hiring another psychologist.
Yes, if they're hard to come by, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Right, which is why I was asking, because I know we had to wait a while last time when it was advertised. Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. We'll move on to.
I have
Mr.
my
Bradley?
hand raised. Yeah, I have my hand raised there, Larry.
Sorry, Mr. Stern, I didn't recognize Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, so on the agenda, at the very beginning, above the Pledge of Allegiance, can you move up a little bit? It shows that there was an executive session at 6:30 for contract negotiations, personnel, and legal. Now, there wasn't much discussion on anything personnel or legal. However, there was a lot of discussion on this contract negotiation. Apparently, our district had decided to form a negotiation committee without having professionals negotiating this $20+ million contract. And it was shared with the board that a meeting was held where half of our negotiating team from the board, it's apparently Rita and Nathan are on that negotiating committee, and the rest of us are excluded. Well, Nathan couldn't make it, and rather than reschedule to a time that he could, or have him delegate somebody that could attend to put eyes and ears in the room for this negotiation, we had Rita only negotiating millions of dollars worth of benefits for our staff. And the idea of not having a stakeholder representative inside that room when they're the ones that are paying that bill does not make any sense at all. I would like to lobby this board as an individual citizen to shift their current late, failed, and horribly biased negotiation practices and hire a professional negotiator like this district has done in the past so that the people of this community can be protected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to Superintendent's report, Mr. Cleaver.
Yes, thank you. We're excited to announce that all staff members who signed up have had the opportunity to be vaccinated at the CLIU over this last week. Special thanks to Dr. Ibe and Kim Talapan for working with all the school districts throughout this process. They are already in the process of preparing for a second wave of the J&J vaccine that will allow us to expand the offering to substitutes, coaches, volunteers, and additional contracted service. Again, this was something that was sprung on them, and they acted so professionally. They got great information, communication with not only Lehighton, but every district in Carbon and Lehigh County. They need to be commended for it. The way it was set up, the whole process went pretty smooth. It was pretty busy over the weekends. That was a Saturday and Sunday. That was more of a heavily attended appointment days. But other than that, everything went very smooth. And again, they're already preparing for the second rollout. So I just wanted to give credit to the entire IU, their staff, and especially Dr. Ibe and Kim Talapan. Kindergarten registration online and the testing plan is beginning in the beginning stages. Mr. Seblin's been putting information together and getting prepared already for next year's kindergarten registration. Again, this registration is completed online by using our Power School program, and we are looking forward to having the testing portion being completed early May. Right now, we're looking at early May, and that will be in person with individual students that would take place. So again, just a quick reminder to keep a lookout for all the information that'll be coming in kindergarten next school year. We'll be here before we know it. So I believe that's a positive thing moving forward to be able to get these kids in and get the testing completed in person. And I did say Power School, I'm sorry, I didn't mean Info Snap, but it's through that same program. Winter Keystones have been completed at the high school for algebra, English language arts, and biology. The testing went very well, and the students have to be commended on how they adjusted the testing process to meet the health and safety guidelines during this pandemic. So again, as always, the kids adapt so fantastic for us, no matter what the situation. And we were able to get those Keystone tests completed for the winter wave, and then we'll have another one for the spring wave. And that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cleaver. We'll move on to approval of minutes. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2021 board meeting. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second by Nathan.
First by Ms. Smiley and second by Mr. Fuller. Mr. Cleaver, could you please rotate, scroll up there? Thank you. Any comments from the board concerning the meeting minutes of February 22nd? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Tenio, please.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz, Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
yes,
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
8 yes, motion carries.
On to financial matters. I need a motion and a second to approve the Lehighton Area High School and Lehighton Area Middle School activities funds for February 2021. Enclosure number 2.
So moved, Steve.
Second, Rita.
I have a motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Ms. Spinelli concerning the financial matter A. Any comments from the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
I have my hand raised, Larry.
Oh, well, you don't have to raise your hand, Mr. Bradley.
I do,
When you ask
out of
for comment,
respect.
You can just press your button and you can speak. Thank you.
Well, out of respect to everyone else, they might want to take turns. If I'm the only one that's going to bring up the fact that we were not able to review these documents, they were not made available to us. A lot of other documents were. We're very proud of the transparency that's being shared. But in all fairness, these documents were not provided other than the reports. Therefore, they are not able to be verified. We might want to postpone this until that can be done. Does anyone want to postpone this, or do you just want to rubber stamp and blind trust it through?
That's a bit of a one-sided question. Can you clarify what exactly you didn't receive? Because I believe both of these were included in our board packet.
No, so the documents, the end report was provided in your board documents. The actual transactions is what you need to verify. It's kind of like if you have two people that have a cash drawer and you want to move it from one person to the other, they both look at it, they both count it, and they both sign off on it. Those things were not done, sir. Or not able to be verified.
Understood.
Out of respect to the people that are transferring this money and moving this money, you want to have that verification. It's respectful to those people. To not do that puts them at risk. And we've all read the papers. We've all seen papers where money goes missing.
Okay, Mr. Bradley.
And because money goes missing, we as a board have a responsibility to ensure that the process is there to protect these people that are volunteering their time to make sure that it's credible. Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, I understand you looked through a lot of records today. Did you request these?
Yes, they were not available. We were told they were not available.
But you did request them.
We spoke about the fact that we were told in advance they were not going to be available, so we did not have them. Yes, thank you, Rita. Good call. Did you go in and look, by the way, today at all, and any of the information?
No, because I knew you were going, and of course, anything that you do would be perfect, so I had no need to go.
Actually, Rita, I'm one of 9. We're individuals. I'm human. We make lots of mistakes. The whole idea is by having a multiple set of eyes, we get to catch these things.
I get it. You said that before.
Yeah.
We all know what you're saying. I did not go. That's all you need to know.
Well, I also need to know that that second set of eyes was in that negotiating meeting and why you wouldn't respect your community and realize that that would
Do you
be
have
important.
any other comment, Mr. Bradley,
I
concerning?
have lots
this
of them,
item?
sir, but I'll leave them for later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other comment from the board? Roll call vote, Mr. Tenio, please.
Mr. Wayne Wentz? Out, absent. Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
No, lack of information. Abstention, sorry, lack of information.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
yes,
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 abstention. Motion carries.
Could anybody hear me when I last spoke? I need a motion and a second, please, on item B.
So moved.
Second by Steve. Never mind.
I have a first by Mr. Fuller, a second by Mr. Holland. Any questions on item B from the board, please?
My hand is raised. Anybody else?
Mr. Bradley, would you please just speak? I mean, you have the ability to push your button, push the space bar down instead of standing there or with your hand waiting to be acknowledged. Thank you. Please state your comment, sir.
Out of respect to the decorum of the board, Larry, you're running the meeting. You can see someone has her hand raised. Is someone else?
I can't see. No, Mr. Bradley, I can't see. And the board has the opportunity to speak at any time without raising your hand. Thank you.
Yeah, but we don't want to step on top of each other. Why can't you see this,
I
Larry?
think you don't mind stepping on top of anyone. So please give your comment. Thank you.
I do, but why can't you see everybody, Larry?
I'm managing the agenda, Mr. Bradley.
I understand, but you can't see the panelists or the participants?
Mr. Bradley, please state your comment.
I am. I'm asking the question because we want to have
Mr.
the
Bradley,
public-
please state your comment.
Sure. So it was very great that the Office of Open Records provided us with the rights to ensure that we can see all these documents, all of them. We did a great job. Mr. Rarick did a fantastic job. He scanned many of them in and we were able to review them. Upon review, we found many discrepancies in the method and accountability that was discussed in the last one. And we also found that on the timesheets, the first file, page 35, 62, 63, and 64 were all illegible, so therefore cannot be verified. And on the second report of page 70, we have number 23, 27, 28, 49, 50, 53, 54, 67. All of those documents were illegible and therefore could not be verified. We're wondering why that is the case, and why don't we postpone this until such time that we actually get the documents before you release these dollars. We also should have the ability to make sure that when something is purchased, something is signed for, someone has access to it, the serial number can be checked. We can spot check them. Randomly, Gail, myself, and Richard spot checked 2 on the table, and both of them failed the standard to which fidelity, which is our oath of office, to be applied to ensure that every dollar collected and every dollar spent is being consumed properly. Once again, he's doing a great job. He's getting much closer. But in reality, if anyone turned in homework that was unlegible, it would not be graded as passable. And therefore, this motion to pass paying these bills when you have illegible documents would be an error. And to act with fidelity is our responsibility. I don't know to what standard the other 9 members or the other 8 members of this board hold as fidelity, but my fidelity says if I can't read something, if it's completely blacked out, that you cannot read it, it doesn't meet that standard. It doesn't even pass the sniff test. I think this should be postponed until such time we do it. He said he's going to try. He did a great job. He got me a lot of the other information this afternoon after our visit. And I think if you just gave him another day, we'll be able to do it. If you need to call a special meeting to make sure that these taxpayers that elected us to abide by the laws and abide by the rules and act with fidelity, I think we should give it to them. I don't think we should disenfranchise our community by doing a disservice like rubber stamping or blindly trusting the information without reading it. End of comment.
Any other comments from the board? Roll call vote, Ms. Patino, please, on the payment of bills. Thank you.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Bell,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
No, we should do our job.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz, absent, Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
4-4.
Mr. Filer, would you please explain the issues caused by this type of motion and this type of action?
You need 5 votes to spend money, and if you're not approving the bills, you guys just voted for the district to not pay its bills this month.
I make a motion that we postpone payment of the bills until such time later this week.
Bradley, you don't
that we
have to
can-
make a motion to postpone them.
I would
The
like to-
motion failed.
Oh, no, so listen to me. Try this on for size, Larry. I make a motion that we postpone this payment of bills, because we can't do it, until such time that we can review these couple dozen pages and do the job properly. And if we need to call a meeting at the end of the week, so be it. Let's do our job. Can I get a second on the motion that we should review the information prior to paying the bills?
I'll make the motion. I'll second the motion, I mean.
I'll take a second to that motion that we should see the bills before we pay them. This is awesome, guys. Look forward to it. We can even schedule the time for the meeting if you'd like.
Mr.
I'll
Bradley, just
second the motion.
just wanted to double check with your motion. Did you request this information from the business office that we could have double checked to get this information to you if you were concerned about it?
Yes, sir. And that's why I was surprised when the information that was presented was illegible. I just showed it on my screen. It's a shame you can't share the screen. Are you telling me you did not review the information that your own board, your own administration?
No, what
gave
I'm
to this
telling
board?
you is you're talking about the documents that are, a darker color. I could see fine on these documents. Mr. Seblin's signature.
No, they were black.
There you go. Good for
Totally
you,
black
Mr. Cleaver.
pages.
That's why we don't trust when you say stuff.
Aaron
okay?
Seblin, I could see Mr. Tack, and I could see Mr. Seblin again. These are some of the
Well, I
numbers that
saw
you
at least
just
3 or
requested.
4 pages that we looked at that were totally black.
That's what I'm just
My
asking.
question to
because-
you then, when you're in this office and you're reviewing that information, why would you not say something?
We did,
We
sir.
did.
Yeah, we did. And we understand that
Mr.
Eric's done a great
No,
job.
wait, no, wait,
Take your
please.
time. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Cleaver or Mr. Raring, did they actually say anything to you about this documents?
They did point them out, yes.
Okay, and what was the remediation that was going to occur?
I was going to pull the copies and resend.
That happened prior to tonight's meeting or not?
No, it did not.
Okay, thank you.
But that conversation did, and we did. So I'm found trustworthy, and other people are not. So that's fine. We should hold them accountable. But at the same time, let's just do our job. Why not? It's so much fun to do the job. If we do the job, not only is our staff accountable and they're happy because
Okay,
now no one can
Mr.
cast
Bradley, you're
aspersions.
making your
Not
point.
only is the
You
community
don't have to
happy,
listen to the
but now you can
side.
start looking at making changes because you have factual documentation to move forward with. Imagine that.
So a special meeting will be scheduled to pay the bills. How much time do we need to advertise ahead of time? Mr. Cleaver and Mr. Filer?
Was there a motion in a second?
Well, first of all, Mr. Cleaver, the motion to pay the bills failed. A 4-4 tie. Therefore, to keep the district solvent, we need to, number one, satisfy the request of the other board members, and number two, we have to have a special meeting to complete the payment of bills so the district is solvent. So my question is, how long do we have to advertise the meeting for prior to having it so we can be in legal compliance with the policy of advertising special meetings?
I confirm with Mr. Filer, but I believe it's 24 hours.
Paying the bills, seeing them first.
I think you're correct. I'm pulling up the Sunshine Act right now.
This is so historic. 3 years on this board. They never looked at these bills. They just paid them. This is the greatest day.
At least
Of all
24
time.
hours.
So we will schedule a meeting for 7 PM or 6 PM on Wednesday for payment of bills, Mr. Cleaver. By
Yes,
that
we
time, Mr. Rarick should have the documentation.
I just want to.
Why don't we
Mr.
confirm? Why don't we confirm? Sorry, go ahead. I'll raise my hand, then you guys can go. Go ahead.
Mr. Stern, this is Nathan. I'm sorry, I got booted out of the meeting somehow. I'm back in now.
Thank you, Nathan. Mr. Bradley? Bradley? you had a
Yes,
comment?
two things. While we have our board discussion and prior to opening it up to the floor, we should have a show of hands of who can make it on Wednesday. Larry, that would be fair to the board, right? You want to have your board available. Just like when Nathan couldn't meet that meeting, you'd reschedule to when they could. Just like when he didn't add a delegate, he can't add a delegate in this respect. So why don't we just show of hands who can make it on Wednesday? That'd be the first step before you pick a day. And then the second step would be let the people speak, and then you can make your final decision from there, I think, if I was running the meeting.
At this point from the board, does anyone have a conflict with Wednesday at 6 PM?
I do not.
I don't have a conflict, Mr. Stern. Since I apparently missed the vote here, is it possible to go back and amend that vote or no?
So you did vote, I believe, Mr. Fuller. It was a 4-4 on the payment of bills. Therefore, we need to get that meeting scheduled so we can pay the bills. And that's what this.
Okay, good.
Is there anyone that cannot make Wednesday the 6th? I mean, Wednesday at 6. That is the time I'm proposing to have a special meeting to execute the payment of bills.
In fairness to, it's going to be a really short meeting, but in fairness to the community, these meetings are normally at 7, and I think it's more easily and available for them to be able to attend a 7 o'clock meeting. I would like to see 7 rather than 6. I don't think the hour is going to change payment of the bills too much.
Okay, does anybody else have issues with 7 o'clock? Okay, we will have a special meeting on Wednesday at 7 o'clock, payment of bills. On to item C.
Hold on, you got to let the public speak. It's a motion.
Well, it's not a motion, Mr. Bradley. I'm not having a motion to have the meeting.
Mr.
don't have a motion. We don't have a
Mr.
motion.
Stern, could I just confirm something with Mr. Bradley?
You also have you have a motion and a second on the floor. You should have a right to speak.
Mr. Cleaver, Wayne is trying to get into the meeting.
He should be able as a panelist to get right in. But I guess my question for Mr. Bradley about the meeting, or about the checks that he's referring to are all through payroll. Is it amendable, since you looked the other bills out, to do the other ones and just hold on payroll until the next meeting because of, getting those other checks out before the end of the month? So all the ones that you question, I believe, are payroll, Mr. Bradley. If I'm not correct, please let me know.
I think your argument is moot. It's the 22nd. You're talking about having a meeting on the 23rd. Normally our meetings aren't even until the 28th. This month, March, happens to have 31 days. So I think
Mr. Bradley, I'm just asking for confirmation that the stuff you were talking about was related to payroll.
You guys have lumped this all together all the time. So no, I would not be amenable to such a change in the payment of these bills, because I also think that, according to what we just heard from the other board members, they didn't get over there to go look at them. So they would be acting as like a blind trust rubber stamper if they didn't get a chance.
I looked at them online.
I know, but the information you got online, Rita, is only like 1/10 of what's on the table when you're supposed to do your job. So thank you for admitting you only looked at it online, and thank you for recognizing, and anyone can verify, that that's not enough. You need to do your job. Thank you for admitting that.
So the only thing open right now, I don't know what motion somebody had floated and got a second on, was that was to have a special meeting, which we can just call a special meeting. We don't have to have a motion to call a special meeting on Wednesday, March 24th at 7 p.m.
Yeah, and the motion, Larry, was that the board would not pay the bills until such time that the documents
Vote
are
fails,
presented to the
Mr.
board.
Bradley, you can't pay the bills.
One more time, Larry.
Nothing else that needs to be done. They can't be paid if the motion failed. So
I
you
know.
don't need a motion to say you're not going to do something that the motion previously failed for.
Larry.
David,
the
you
motion-
understand what I'm saying, David?
The motion and the second was
Mr.
to
Bradley.
make sure that the
Mr. Bradley.
board had the opportunity to review the documents prior to the payment of bills, and that you were to then, after you get that motion passed, schedule a meeting so that it can be done. So yeah, there's two parts here, Larry, but you can do whatever you want. You're the one with the prerogative, apparently.
The information is already in process. You get the folks who are concerned what they need to see. There doesn't need a motion for that to occur.
I just have a question. These timesheets that were dark, Mrs. Mahalik and Mr. Belts and Mr. Bradley, were they for a payroll that's already been paid?
I was there today, Rita. I couldn't tell what that was for. There's nothing legible on the document that I saw.
Mr. Eric, do you have anything to say about this?
Yes, those are timesheets for the February payroll, which has already been paid.
So in other words, they already got the money. So the only recourse would be, if those timesheets were invalid in some way, would be to change it the next time. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so since it's already been done and we can't take their pay away from them, is there some reason we still need this special meeting to approve just those timesheets? I'm trying to understand exactly what it is we're gonna do here.
We're going to act with fidelity, honor our oath, and
Besides
review
that,
documents. and remove-
practically, what are we doing?
We're gonna review
Philosophically, I don't need to hear what you're gonna do. I wanna know practically what we're doing here.
We're going to hold you accountable that you're going to do your job, review the information prior to authorizing, taking an official action, and paying a bill. The fact that this board allows payments to be made without board approval has cost this district $3 million. $3 million. Auditor
Mr.
General's
Bradley,
report.
we have to pay our employees. We have to.
But we don't,
If there's
I
a
agree.
discrepancy, you fix it, but you must pay them.
They already been paid. You already admitted that, Rita. So the idea is that you actually want to do your job to make sure that you check these bills before you authorize, before you make an official action as a government official.
I'm done with this. Mr. Wentz
I know
is
you're
now
done with
on.
this. I hope you resign, and I hope you're
I
done with the whole
know,
thing.
I know what you hope. I know what you hope. Hope all you want. It's not going to happen. But Mr. Wentz is now on. Hope springs
thank you.
eternal, Mr. Bradley.
I apologize. I'm having trouble again with what's going on to try and keep track of where we are. I believe we don't need a motion in a second to not pay bills that we had a motion prior that failed because you didn't have a majority to spend the money. So at this point, I'm moving on to item C. Need a motion and a second to approve the following reports, 1 through 6. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second by Nathan.
Any comments by the board on these reports? Mr. Virginia, roll call vote on the reports, please.
Hold on 1 second, Larry. I apologize. No one else has a comment on the reports? At all?
I have a comment, Mr. Bradley.
I want to know how the expense by object report was corrected to ensure that we're not going over our budget in compliance with the Pennsylvania School Code. Although some of them still show that we have exceeded that, which would be, in my opinion, illegal. And you have claimed in court to say that it is moot to not have to comply with that law. But if you look at the object report on page 13, for example, closure 4, percentage of budget used, 103% over budget, $12,000. That means we spent money that we didn't have in the budget prior to moving it first, which is such a simple action that it would then cause a...
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. And same with on page...
Can
19.
anybody hear me?
Oh,
Yes,
we hear you,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
We definitely can hear you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm on.
That's great. We're so happy to have you here. So, Wayne, we're looking at the report, and our budget is off by thousands of dollars. What should we do? What are we going to do?
That's your opinion.
Mr. Bradley, please stop.
No, Wayne,
Just
that's the
ask
report.
the
Did you
question.
read the report? The report is, it
Mr.
shows
Stern,
overage.
can we
You're not
Bradley?
allowed to go over the budget. Are we
Mr.
going to
Bradley.
follow the law, or are we going to not follow the
Bradley.
law?
Can you please
My
stay on
vote-
task, Mr. Bradley?
My vote is to pay the bill.
Get back to that, Mr. Wentz.
We're talking about the expenditures report, Wayne, the expenditures report. They're over budget. They're showing it over budget. Do you
Mr.
want to
Bradley, do you
follow
have
the
any
law and
comments for
listen
the-
to the judge and follow the law?
Okay,
Or do you
roll
wanna
call
not
vote,
do it?
Mr. Tenio, please. We're
No,
not going
sir,
to put
we
up
got
with
to ask the question. Are we
belligerence
gonna,
of a
it's off.
board
Why
member.
is it off, sir? Why is the
Roll
budget
call.
off? How are you
Roll call vote.
authorizing it?
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
After being in that courtroom and the judge? No, absolutely not. Are you going to do this?
Mr.
Ask in
Nathan Fuller,
defiance of the law.
Yes.
Mr.
Oh.
Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Thankfully, we have the report by Mr. Rarick that tells us that it's now over budget. So I'm sure the corrections will be made to those particular accounts by the next month. So thank you very much. And yes, I approve the reports.
Five yes,
Page
4 no,
13, Larry.
motion
Need
carries.
a
Page
motion and
13.
a second to
Larry,
make the
page
following
13.
transfer from the general fund to the food service fund as per the reimbursements from the Commonwealth of $54,969.68 for January 2021. I need a motion and a second, please.
So
So
moved, Nathan.
moved, Steve. Second, Nate.
So I have a first by Mr. Fuller and a second by Mr. Holland. Any questions on the budget transfer? Item D for the board, please.
Look it up.
Hearing
I have
none, we'll
one.
call
Wait,
for
I
the
have one. Why is the budget short and needing transfer?
This is exactly what we just talked about in the previous commentary. We're trying not to overspend where there's no budget code put in. It was put in incorrectly in the incorrect object code, function code, and we're trying to move it to the correct location.
Excellent, excellent explanation, excellent action by the board, and in advance of the problem. That's planning. That's a government agency for you. I love it. Thank you, Mr. Rarick. Awesome job.
Any further comments? Roll call vote, Mr. Tenio, please.
Mr. David Bradley,
Absolutely.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On item E, I need a motion and a second to make the following transfer from Lehigh Carbon Community College tuition budget code 1693 in the amount of $2,412 to Lehighton. All right, scratch that. It should be Lehigh, not Lehighton. Lehigh Carbon Community College debt service budget code 1700. I need a motion, please.
So moved, Nathan.
Second.
Second, Wayne.
A motion by Nathan and a second by Mr. Wentz. Concerning the item E, since there is a typo on there, it should read Lehigh Carbon Community College debt service budget code 1700. Is there any comment from the board on this budget transfer?
Again, why was this budget bucket short, requiring a transfer of $50,000 only halfway through or 2/3 of the way through the year?
Again, it wasn't short, it's just being transferred to the correct location.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments on the board, please? Any public comments? If there is an addendum, the motion. Mr. Cleaver, is there any participants? Comment, please.
For this motion?
Yes, sir, because I did make a change because it had Lehighton instead of Lehigh for the budget code definition.
Ms. Bose?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to thank Ed for trying to correct issues that have happened in the past. I noticed that there were numbers that were corrected and put where they were supposed to be in the budget reports, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
At this time, there's none.
Thank you, sir. Roll call vote, Mr. Tenio, please, for this budget transfer, item E.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On the item F, I need a motion and a second to refund the following occupational and per capita taxes 2019 in the amount of $135 to Terry Whiteman. I need a motion and a second, please. Item F.
So moved.
Second, Steve.
I have a motion by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Holland. Any comments on the board on item F? Hearing none, roll call vote, Mr. Tenio.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
and Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On item D, I need a motion and a second to approve the exemptions from per capita and or occupational tax per the enclosure number 5. Motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second, Steve.
Motion by Ms. Spinelli, second by Mr. Holland. Any questions on item G by the board, please? Hearing none, roll call vote, Mr. King.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item H, need a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement for special education service with LIU for 2022 school year per the enclosure number 6. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved by Nathan.
Second by Steve then.
Thank you. I got a motion by Mr. Fuller, a second by Mr. Holland on item H. Any comments on item H? Roll call vote, Mr. Tenio. Thank you.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item I, need a motion and a second to approve the Department of Lehigh Intermediate Unit Number 21 Facilities Plan 2021-22 school year as per the enclosure number 7. I need a motion.
So moved.
So moved, Wayne.
I have a first by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Wentz. Is there any questions on item I? Roll call, Mr. Tenio, please.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
and Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item J, I need a motion and a second to approve the agreement with the Meadows Psychiatric Center for 2021-2022 and 2022-2023 school years on an as-needed basis for students in the district, as per enclosure number 8. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second, Nathan.
Got a first by Mr. Elliott, a second by Mr. Fuller. Any questions on the agreement signed by item J?
Yes, I have a question. This is Joy. I would like Mr. Cleaver to kind of give us some background here because I don't recall the name of this particular firm. Is this a new outfit that we're doing work with?
Yes, this is another organization that we do work with. And again, this type of program is one that the district does not pull or does not ask for the provider. The provider is assigned by either the doctor who's doing the evaluation or the hospital if the student needs to be in placement. You could see that the second part of that agreement is really that we will work with them and give them their educational service because no matter where the student is placed, Lehighton School District is still responsible for those services. The majority of our students, I will say, however, do end up being assigned to a kids piece, which you're probably more familiar with. But again, as at the beginning, when when Ms. Bowles was questioning, I said that they're becoming overwhelmed with a lot of beds being filled. So we're expanding a little bit to try and get additional options for our students when they need that immediate placement.
Okay, where is the Meadows based out of?
There's different ones throughout the area. I'm not 100% sure where this one is.
Okay, how did you make the connection with this group?
This was sent to us because of students that have the option, the students that may be placed there. We didn't reach out to them. They came to us because of the possibility of students being placed there.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Joy.
My hand is raised.
Mr. Bradley, please.
I also want to understand how this process that we're going to now sign an agreement that this payment's going to be made. So we're actually making decisions against payments in the future. Was this bid out? Were there other opportunities? Are there people available? Because I believe these guys are out of Center Hall is what when I researched it, that's where I found out they were from. But I don't know if that's the exact one that we're talking about because there's no address, there's no nothing on this agreement. But is this the same place out of Center Hall?
This location, their general office is out of there, but like I said, they have facilities throughout the area.
But it's the Center
and
Hall
again,
corporate location.
This would be in the event the doctor assigns a student there. Again, we are immediately responsible to meet that student's educational needs. And how we do that is a team decision. But that's what this agreement is really based around. And so there's no payment unless one of our students are placed there.
But you just identified that some of our students may be placed there.
Yes, but we wouldn't know that until after the fact.
Correct. And
This
creating an
allows
agreement.
them to be placed there? I mean, it makes the process simpler.
It allows them to be placed there, but it also is mandated that we do the educational needs. So the agreement is that we will, again, meet that need for the student in the event someone is placed there.
And how will that need be met? Are we sending people to this location or
In the past, we had, depending on the location, similar to homebound. So
the Center Hall, we're going to drive some.
Now, if there's other if it's something like Center Hall, it may be something where they would give the educational component and then they would in turn bill us as we do with other districts.
It doesn't appear that this has been reviewed in a committee. It doesn't appear that this has been reviewed by any of the board members other than this statement that we were given on Thursday that here is the agreement, here is the motion, and here's this piece of paper with no background, no information at all, no update, no understanding other than this is going to cost you money. We don't know how or why, and we don't know if there's someone locally that provides this service for them. And here you are. Again,
Mr. Bradley, this is not an option for us. We are required to do this. The doctor will not give us, call our director or call an administrator and say, hey, go shop around and look for the cheapest place. This is something, a student comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning, has an event where he is in need of a bed. Monday morning, there is going to be a responsibility of an educational need. This is saying that for $67 a day, that they would be, that we would be charged if, we cannot meet their educational need by someone, for example, from our district.
I find
we have these type of agreements with Kids Peace and the intermediate unit and other different organizations as well.
I agree. And
we do not have the option of deciding where these students are placed.
But again, I find it ironic that our administration is coming to the board requiring a vote by the board of 9 people with an agreement that doesn't even know where these people are coming from, where they're going, and you're going to consume dollars with no information. And then you're telling your board you don't have an option. Well, then why are we voting on it? And there is no choice. Well, then when do the people get the opportunity to comment? And did anyone even look at or review, or is this just an easy answer because someone showed up and said, I want to do this work for you. Please give me an agreement so that I can get paid too, because this district has been proven in the Auditor General's report not to do their job.
Mr. Bradley,
what a great opportunity. I'm going to come from Center Hall and milk that Lehighton district.
Our students, and you turn it around and make them.
No, I'm not turning around. You're telling
me this is giving us an option for additional placements. These placements are filling up fast. We need as many beds for any student in an emergency or in a quick time. This allows us, in the event someone like Kids Piece is filled and doesn't have a bed, we have this agreement in place with them that we could actually have a student be sent there immediately. I have no further comment. In
You
fact,
understand,
you're trying
Mr.
to
Cleaver,
turn it
we have
into
a
something like-
responsibility as a board.
You
to
have a
bid out-
responsibility to look out for the best interests of students, Mr.
Yes,
Bradley.
and that's
That
the
is your
point.
responsibility.
Yeah, that's the point. So why would we send
And
one to
that's
Center
what we're
Hall?
trying to do here.
Why would you send them to Center Hall? That's hours away.
I
You don't
just
even know.
repeated,
Of
it's
course
not-
we don't know that, Larry. That's the point of having the debate and the conversation.
You're not sending him,
prior to the
Mr. Bradley. We're not sending
I
him. The
have no
doctor
further
is sending
comment
them.
for this.
In the best interest of our students, we, as a board, should stop this blind trusting rubber stamping of an administrator
Okay,
that doesn't give
roll
the
call vote,
information.
Ms.
and
Patinio,
allows our
please.
students to be protected by a governing
Mr.
board
Bradley, the
that has
doctors
the
are protecting the
responsibility-
students by sending them to this institution.
But we have to protect them by actually looking at all the institutions that are available to them. Which one do we want to make an agreement with? It should then be presented to the board. The decision then should
Okay,
be made
you're
after
out
you
of-
have the information. It's such a simple concept, Larry. You're
Roll
supposed
call
to have
vote, Mr.
information,
Patinio, please.
then make a decision. And by the way, they didn't even know where this was. Our board didn't even know where it was until I, did my research.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
We should have the information first. No.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no, motion carries.
On to item L, we need a motion and a second to approve the agreement with VBA to extend the district's managed vision care contract for an additional 24 months period from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023 at no rate increase per the enclosure number 10.
Mr. Stern, I believe we missed K.
I'm sorry. My apologies. Go back to item K. Need a motion and a second to approve Conrad Spiegel for the Lehighton Area School District GASB 75 Valuation Services in the amount of $7,225 performed annually per the enclosure number 9. And a second, please.
So moved, Nathan.
Second, Wayne.
I have a question.
Holder, a second by Mr. Wentz. Is there questions, additional questions on item K?
Maybe I'm a little confused. I know I am. It says right here, the evaluation service agreement is made effective the first day of July 2020. Is that a mistake? Because we're in 2021? Help me out on this.
Good catch, Steve.
Yeah, I would have to contact them. The valuation is for the prior year. So whenever
Oh.
we sign the agreement, they evaluate the prior year. So, but I can clarify that for everyone, yes.
I also have a question, Mr. Eric. In the beginning of the meeting with the question from Ms. Bose, you stated that we have been using these people for quite a while, and it was done through the business office. Do you know how many years we've been dealing with these people?
That I don't know.
Okay. But it used to just be handled by the business office and not given to the board for review, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And as part of the Auditor General's report with the responsibility of the board to review all contracts prior to making heinous mistakes, that's why this is coming in front of the board. That's the correction, correct? That's one
Are
of
you
the
directing
corrections,
that to me,
correct?
Mr. Bradley, or?
No, I'm asking the question. So the reason this was rubber stamped without even the board seeing it for years. But now all agreements are coming before the board prior to their approval because of the Auditor General's report, which spanked this district hard for not doing such things and losing millions of dollars. So that's why this is now coming in front of the board in contradiction to what Rita said.
I don't think there's any contradiction, Mr. Bradley. I think Ms. Spinelli said it's a contract that is now put in front of the board.
Yeah, because she said that it never was put in front of the board before.
That's correct.
There you go. So I'm in agreement that it was never put in before. And we have to now review these things prior to voting on them. And like Steve did, which is awesome, Steve, very proud of you for reading it, shows a date error that maybe we should have it corrected first. Or at least clarified first. We could do this one on the Wednesday meeting as well. Do you think you could get the information by Wednesday, Ed?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Excellent. I think this should just move this one to Wednesday, Larry. That would be like responsible and awesome. You don't even need a vote. You can actually just do it, Larry, knowing it's the right thing to do.
I don't think it works that way.
Oh, yes, it does. He's the board president. When he decides whether or not something gets voted on or postponed,
Actually,
he has that
since there's a
authority.
motion and a second on the floor on it, I would have to have the motion and the second rescinded.
You don't. We do. You don't. You can say, my board does not have the proper information to make this decision, so I'm taking the
Mr.
command
Bradley,
decision as
can
the
we
president.
please let
and I'm
Mr.
going
Stern run
I am.
the
I'm
meeting?
trying to.
There's no
I'm
way I
helping
can
him.
even
I'm
try
coaching
to a
him.
semblance of a running a meeting. Mr.
Well,
Cleaver.
you know what, Mr.
that.
Stern, when
coaching
you're
him.
trying to, we will continue to mute him so we can at least follow this because it's becoming ridiculous. We can't even follow a meeting.
Well, no, Mr. Cleaver. We're coaching our board
Bradley.
president on how to
We don't
run
need you
with
coaching anything.
proper protocol, Mr. Cleaver. We're teaching him. Don't mute me out.
Again, Mr. Stern.
You can do this, Larry. You have that power. This is one of the authorities you have. This is one of the authorities you actually do have, Larry. You could say, my board doesn't have the information. I'm going to hold this off until the next meeting. It happens to be Wednesday, and we're going to do it then.
Is there any other comments on item K? Roll call vote, Ms. Pertinio, please.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No, let's wait till Wednesday, please.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yeah, Wednesday, Larry. No.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen
So
Holland,
close.
No.
It's that Larry making a good decision.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Wait till Wednesday.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Thank you. Motion fails on to item L. Need a motion and a second to approve the agreement with VBA to extend the district's managed vision care contract for an additional 24 months from July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2023 at no rate increase per the enclosure number 10. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second by Nathan.
The first by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Fuller concerning item K. Item L, my apologies. Is there any other discussion on item L?
I want to commend the administration for bringing contracts in front and agreements in front of the board prior to their approval. Thank you.
Roll call vote on item L. Ms. Pertinio, please.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
On the personnel, item A, I need a motion and a second to approve the attached list of candidates for the 2021 substitute list, pending any necessary paperwork as per enclosure number 11. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved, Wayne.
Second,
Who was the second, please?
you can let Nathan second it. He was trying to jump in there.
If you said it, Mr. Bradley, the second by Mr. Bradley.
I'd like to make the comment, did anyone check whether or not these substitutes had SEL training? Was it part of their resume?
No, they do not, Mr. Bradley.
Okay, are we gonna make that a mandatory?
We had this discussion, and at this time, it is not a recommendation to make that mandatory.
I know, and I'm lobbying again because I really think it's important to our board to recognize that each and every time that we hire someone, even if it's a substitute, a coach, a cafeteria person, a janitor, a groundskeeper, that if we ask for, or even better, require social emotional learning credits and or a certificate, or even internal to Lehighton, that part of the hiring process includes a paid training inside of our district by the people that have this skill, so at least they get something for all of our staff members. We'll better protect our students and provide a better service to our community. Thank you.
Any other comments by the board? And thank you for your recommendation. Roll call vote, item A, Ms. Patino.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
On to item B, I need a motion and a second to approve the following request for athletic coach and manager candidates as per the contract date, pending any necessary paperwork per the enclosure number 12. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved, Steve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Ms. Spinelli concerning item B. Any comment from the board on item B?
I have the same question regarding the SEL training of any of these candidates and hires. Do we have that background information available to us?
There is none, sir.
No information, or we know that they don't have it?
They do not have the SEL certifications, no.
Okay, do they have any SEL training that we've provided within our district?
At this point, there is none, and you are aware of that because you were part of the academic meeting regarding all the SEL updates.
I was hoping that after that conversation, maybe one of them decided that's a great idea. Let's protect our students. Let's provide the social emotional learning to all of our employees so that the students can be protected by this board and this government. So disappointed a little bit. Thank you.
Any other comments by the board on this item? Roll call vote, Ms. Patino, please.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
absent. Mr. David Bradley,
Actually, Mr. Belts was not absent. He said no. And I'm also going to say no because, again, we should really have all of our staff members available to have a SEL leader. Thank you.
Can you hear me? This is Richard Belt speaking.
Kicked down, came back in, Mr. Bell. So pick that back up.
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
having.
Tenney, please pick that back up at the position in the roll call vote.
Is
Yeah.
We
Mr.
were-
Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. David Bradley, Mr. David Bradley, Mr. Nathan Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley, are you there?
I'm back. I was kicked out. Thank you.
Mr. David Bradley, your vote?
I said no, and I said that I was kicked out of the meeting
Yeah, you
somehow.
weren't the only one, Mr. Bradley. You weren't kicked out. You were about to kick out. Thank you.
Well,
No,
it showed on my screen that I was kicked out, but thank you. Yeah, no, we should have a SEL learning for all of our coaches. Thank you. Prior to
Mr.
their
Larry
hire.
Stern?
yes.
6 yes, 3 no, motion carries.
On the item C, I need a motion and a second to approve the following requests for pre-approval of courses or programs of study for continuing education. Items 1 and 2. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved. Steve.
Second by Nathan.
I have a motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Mr. Fuller. Any questions on item C? Hearing none, I'll entertain a roll call vote. Mr. Tenio on item C. Thank you.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item B, I need a motion and a second to accept the resignation of the following employees: Ryan Gallagher, effective April 30th, Jessica Schaefer, effective April 23rd. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
I'll second it. Steve.
First by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Holland. Any questions on item D? Mr. Cleaver, I don't see any tenure on here or dates of employment as per usual when folks, I guess that's only when they retire.
That's when they're retiring, yes.
Thank you, sir. Yep, I was just asking for that clarification. Further questions on item D?
I do have a question. Are we going to replace the music teacher?
Yes, we would be posting for both of these positions.
Okay.
Where will that be posted?
We post them through PSBA. We post them on other educational websites as well. And in the event, we will put them in the local newspaper. There's also different programs that we offer that are district for where educators will look for them. With the school psychologist, we will probably actually post at colleges who actually have that degree because it is a little limited on applications for that. So a place like Marywood would be a college that we would reach out and ask them to also post it on their boards.
And as far as the music teacher, will we require them to have a certificate in social emotional learning so we can add to the breadth of opportunities to our students within the community?
At this time, we would not. Again, we're trying to look to develop a program in-house, and you are, part of that discussion as well, to where we're looking in-house to do that. But as far as a requirement, there is no requirement.
Actually, there was one comment at an academic committee meeting, and then it was shunned. So I'm eager to see that actually I'm theoretically
That
part
is
of it.
completely untrue.
We had a long discussion, a plan in place, and unfortunately, you didn't like the responses that you're receiving, that we would like to get buy-in and do that to implement a new program at this point. So please don't say it was shunned. We had a long discussion.
Just like I'm being shouted out now, but most definitely shunned. I didn't have any
That
input.
we try to refute when people speak falsely of things, Mr. Bradley, and that was a definite speaking falsely by yourself concerning that matter of SEL training. Thank you.
Absolutely not. The first conversation.
Absolutely yes.
No, the first
Absolutely yes.
No, it wasn't. The first conversation
Yes,
was
it
in a
was.
meeting.
You didn't get your way. You didn't get your book read. You didn't get what you
I know.
wanted
I
done.
donated books. I donated books.
No,
I sent them to the school to have it reviewed. And then I even sent multiple copies to the school so that we could have this education and have this discussion. And then it showed up in an academic meeting where you were not going to make this process mandatory.
So does that mean you're the sponsor of the SEL program within the district now, Mr. Bradley?
Most definitely.
Okay,
we should have, and I'm the one that suggested we can even have one internally.
Instructional staff to try to bring it forward, let them know.
Larry, why are you shutting me down? This is something we both support for the benefit of the students. Why are you shutting it down? To take a step forward, to take a step forward, I think that each time that we post this, we should look for a candidate that may already have this feature.
That have that, and they probably will be counted in as their.
We want to advertise that. We want to say this is expected and or requirement and or will be provided by our district once you get here. I think that that's the step forward. If we want to protect our students, that's the path. That's why I'm asking how we're advertising. That's how I'm asking how we're going to hire these people, because we need to change the way we hire people around here. We have enough problems.
Any further comments by any other board member on these two resignations, actually?
No, if they resign, they resign.
Roll call vote, Ms. Bertinio, please. Thank you.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes, and Larry, the discussion was about how they're going to be replaced. That was the deliberation that needs to be done in public as part of the
discussion that you
sunshine.
brought up is the shunning of your program. So let's just let it go and bring it up in academic affairs again. We all will. Thank you.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item E, I need a motion and a second to approve the following as Georgia's Transportation Company Incorporated additional school bus drivers for the 2021 school year, pending any necessary paperwork.
So moved.
1 and 2. Thank you, Rita.
Second by Nathan.
I have a first by Mr. Pinelli, a second by Mr. Fuller. Any questions on the bus drivers being added to Mr. George's roster? Item E. Hearing none, we will entertain a roll call vote. Mr. Fuller, please.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
I'll say yes. Oops, hold on a second. I'll say yes since we're getting the information pending. Let's make sure the board gets copies of that information to ensure that their clearances are met. Thank you.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On the programs, I need a motion and a second to approve the use of school property for the following requests, 1 through 9. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Moved, Wayne.
Second, Rita.
Item A, use of school property. Hearing
Hearing none, we'll entertain a roll call vote. Mr. Tenio, please.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
On to item B, you need a motion and a second to approve the following proposed Lehighton Area School District policies and/or revision for the first reading of public review and comment. Policies listed there as items 1 and 2. We need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second by Nathan.
I have a first by Mr. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Fuller on item B. Any discussion on item B from the board, please?
I have a comment, Mr. Stern, just for the public's benefit. These are, the homeless students are things that we're required to change in our policy. And same thing with food service. So I just want the public to know that.
Thank you.
This is
Nathan,
Joy.
you?
Can
Oh, sorry.
someone from the policy group just give a summary of what the changes are? How this will be different for the students?
The food service actually came from the auditors to show how we were going to acknowledge the debt for non-payment. So that was actually a auditing piece as well. A request in the homeless students was a request from our homeless liaison to make adjustments to update all the laws and everything with the homeless students. And we just went through that audit for homeless students. I believe that was last week. We went through that audit report with them, and that came from their recommendation.
Who is our homeless liaison?
It comes out of the curriculum office, and Jeff Zimmerman, I believe is his last name, from PDE, is the one who is our contact. So anytime we have questions, Mr. Tack, and if it's a billing question, make them from the business office, we'll reach out to him for clarification.
Thank you.
I have a comment as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
In the policy committee meeting, we were having this discussion about and deliberating these motions and these recommendations to the board, and during which time Rita and Larry canceled the meeting because they didn't like what their ears were hearing in reference to the
I
ideology.
will beg to differ again, Mr. Bradley. You didn't like how the meeting was going, and you're the one that caused this disruption for us to be able to handle the meeting, which we appropriately did handle, approved open items that needed approval, and adjourned, even without your cooperation.
Yet we do have a responsibility to follow the entire agenda, Larry. And just as you truncated me there, you got to recognize that we have a responsibility to listen to the public, since you didn't listen to the public before the meeting. And your public comment was after this, but you guys adjourned, skipping public comment. That's just not fair to the community.
There was no public comment. We did actually ask for public comment at the policy.
You did not. I
We
have a recording of the meeting.
had no public attendance other than the policy committee.
One more time, Larry.
Well, one more time, that is the way it went down. I'm not going to allow you to put out any false information, Mr. Bradley.
You're right. And the reality is you did truncate the meeting.
Your reality is different than everybody else's.
So then you tell me what your reality was, and I'll prove it later on YouTube. Go ahead, Larry. Tell me what you think it was.
You can hack up your YouTube videos all you want.
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
Go ahead.
I will
You got
definitely.
nothing better to do than to hack up
If
YouTube
you would
videos.
actually just meet the Sunshine Act, Larry, and not get so angry
Mr. Bradley,
when another
Mr.
fellow
Bradley,
board
Mr.
member
Meeting.
tries to say, let's
We
listen
call
to the
for a roll
public.
call vote, please, Mr.
Mr. Cleaver, I'm talking to
Are there any
Larry
other
about trying to let the
comments
people
on
speak.
policies? Item B, 51 and 808.
Wait, well, we
for
shouldn't be
first
voting
initial
on this
reading.
until the community has the opportunity to comment. This is
Mr.
wrong.
Bradley, they
First
have the
reading, sir.
opportunity.
This is the first reading of those. They will be on the school website and have been on the school website for the public to review. There was no comment given at the beginning of the meeting.
They actually have 3 different meetings, Mr. Bradley, to comment on. The one where they're being discussed in policy, and then there's also 2 additional meetings of the school board that they could comment. So for you to say they don't have a chance to comment again is another inaccurate statement.
It is not when Rita decides this meeting is now adjourned and
No,
then
no, we're
uses
not
her
going down
bully
that road
pulpit
of your
with
interpretation.
Larry. Hold on, with Larry, who's
Actually,
not even.
the part of the meeting that you're really missing, Mr. Bradley, is the disruptions that you have caused in the meetings. The cause and effect is you don't obey and don't listen to what's going on. You stay your diatribe. We listen to it. That's not good enough. You have to then continue to disrupt and ignore. I'm trying to find the right word of how you attack people constantly. So thank you very much.
I would also.
I find you to be a liar. Hold on, that's a lie.
Mr. Bradley, wait a minute.
So wait a second.
Wait a
The
minute.
reality is we have a
vote.
meeting. Hold on. We
Video,
have a
please.
meeting with the committee. The committee has a responsibility to follow the agenda. The committee has a responsibility to meet and let the public speak. One of the
Leave a
reasons
roll
they don't
call.
show up is
Mr.
because you bully
Bradley,
them out.
listen
I'm
to
speaking.
me.
No, not until I'm done, Rita. You be quiet.
You-
So wait. you
No,
be quiet
I
till
will
I'm done.
not, because you're
Oh, you
saying
won't.
I said the meeting should be adjourned, and what I said was, if there is no other public comment, this meeting is adjourned. And Mr. Stern is right. If you would listen instead of carrying on like a banshee, you would know that. I did not say it was adjourned. I said, if there is no public comment, this meeting is adjourned. And Mr. Cleaver said there was not. Stop lying.
We will clarify that, but at
I
the
believe
same
we
time,
have
hold on,
Item
guys.
B, roll
guys,
call vote on
hold
item
The
B,
comment
Ms.
is,
Spinelli,
hold
over,
on.
please.
The comment is.
Mrs.
that
Rita
you're supposed to-
Spinelli?
You're supposed to let them speak, guys.
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes?
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
No, the people should have a right to speak.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
On to item C, motion and a second to approve the following Lehighton Area School District policies for the second and final approval. Policies listed there, 146.1, 334, 334.1, and 335. These have been discussed at various policy meetings, and this is the second reading of these particular policies at our school board meetings. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second by Nathan.
I have a first by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Fuller. Any other comments on item C?
Again, the policy meeting was truncated early. These were not properly reviewed at that meeting, giving people the opportunity to speak. The way that this board is supposed to work is those people are supposed to have a right to speak. And when you act like this, even to me, that has a difference of opinion, it's no wonder you silence the community, because they won't be heard. Listen to that rant we just heard. Nobody that has their right mind would say, who wrote these policies and why aren't they reviewed properly by a board of school directors? And our policy, our own policy, says Larry is not supposed to be on a meeting. He can attend any of these committee meetings, but he should not be there dictating and making the majority to block other dissenting opinions by individuals
May I
of a
just
board.
ask a question? I hate to have another rant come on, Mr. Bradley,
I know,
but
and I hate that
at
you
what
interrupted me. I
point-
was talking.
At what point do you respect other people's opinion? I'm just curious. I haven't seen that in the 3.5 years I've known you.
That's funny, but so the difference is, and it's really simple, Rita, I respect opinions that have logic, reason first, and then you can add your emotion in. It's pretty straightforward. It's called the decision-making process. You collect information about a situation. You then review the actions you can take. You choose one of those actions as the option you're going to pick, and then you reevaluate whether or not that action was down the path you wanted to go. So when you are stubborn and ranting away, You don't get the
Okay,
opportunity.
okay.
I'm talking, Larry.
Roll call
You don't
vote
get the
on item
opportunity
B,
to review
please.
the option that was
Ms. Virginia,
selected. Hold on.
thank you.
That was reviewed the option that was selected
Mr. Wayne
to
Wentz?
reevaluate whether or not it's the right path.
Yes, excuse me, I'm being interrupted here. Yes, my vote is yes.
Thank you. Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
No, we should review them first.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes, and just contrary to Mr. Bradley's comments, these have been at the policy meetings, posted on our website for at least 2 months, and we have not had any public comment on either of them, so I say yes to the policy. Thank you.
8 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Hold on. Did you say, wait a
On
second,
to
Larry,
item
did you
B, I
say,
need a motion and a second to approve the graduation to be held on Friday, June 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. with a rain date of Saturday, June 12th, 2021 at 1 p.m. in the Lehighton Area High School, Lehighton Area School District multi-purpose. Need a motion, second, please.
So moved.
I'll second it. Steve?
Motion by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Holland. Any comments on item B, please?
so moved?
Any other further comments? A roll call vote, Ms. Virginio, please.
Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
Now, item E, I need a motion and a second to approve Lehighton Area High School 2021-2022 Programs of Studies, enclosure number 13.
So moved, Steve.
Second, and this was reviewed at academics.
A motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Mrs. Spinelli. Any other comments on item E? Hearing none, we'll call for roll call vote. Ms. Virginio, please.
Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
No.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Business for discussion? I have an item under old business.
I have an old business.
Like, Mr. Bradley? I'm owing old business. We're going back to financial matters. Item B, I need a motion and a second to
Hold on,
approve.
we're doing, I said I have old business, sir.
2021,
I have old
closure
business.
number 3,
I have old business.
general fund, debit card, payroll, food service fund for a total of $2,721,822.21. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved, Nathan.
Second.
I have a first by Mr. Fuller, a second by Mrs. Spinelli. Comments from the board on the payment of bills.
Are you telling me that you're re-pulling that payment of the bills because Wayne showed up and now you don't have to review the information and now you're going to block the right of the other individuals on this board to review this information prior to taking a vote?
You have all the right to come in and still figure out what you need to do, Mr.
I understand that, but it really said,
I'm not going to
you're
hold the
cutting me
district
off.
hostage over 2 or 3 time cards that you can read and that others have validated, and you will be getting those in the mail or either provided to by Mr. Rarick.
Larry,
But again,
this is
you're
Richard
actually
Belt
saying,
speaking.
but yeah, guys, you're
This
actually
is-
trying to redo this.
We pulled two invoices, and there were errors on both when we were there today. I think it's the right thing to do to review these materials. What you're doing is you're expanding the tyranny of the majority here. You have the majority, you know it, and you're taking advantage of it, but you're not doing the right thing.
Shame on you.
I kind of stay to myself. I stay to myself, and I don't speak up, but this is ridiculous. Let's have this vote on Wednesday. Let's have a chance to review these bills. Dave's been doing a good job reviewing these things. I think Mr. Rarick is doing a good job. I'd like to see him continue what he's doing. Please push this off to Wednesday.
I have a question.
Mr. Belts, can you tell us what you found that was wrong? You said you found 2 invoices that were incorrect. What did you?
I don't think I can
wrong?
speak of that outside of executive session right now.
Okay, well, you didn't speak about it in executive session.
It didn't come up, Rita. Dave said everything that needed to be said at that point.
But I'm confused. You're saying we can't pay bills because you found errors, but you won't tell us what those errors are.
Rita, we will pay the bills on Wednesday after we've had a chance to review them.
I'm sorry, Rusty. This is ridiculous.
No, you're ridiculous, Rita.
Yeah, thank you very much. I rant. I'm ridiculous. I'm stupid. I don't know anything. Why would anybody? Yeah, I know. I get it.
Why would anybody spend $2.some million without looking at the bills, Rita?
Rusty, this is Nathan also. I would be interested to hear what issues you found. I heard Mr. Bradley raise issues with payroll. Payroll checks have already been written. I don't see the point of holding off the payment of the rest of the bills for payroll, but I'm open to hear anything else you've got.
I think the questions you're referring to is the 2 invoices, if I'm correct from what I understood from it, is the one for athletic equipment, which is quoted at the beginning of the year. And the other one, I believe, was for a kids piece, which is for a placement of a student.
I think there were
So you
several
would not
pages
be
that
able
were
to
blank,
get,
a lot more than
you would
that.
not get documentation of student information for a placement.
And what was wrong with the bill? I mean, they
Nobody
said
was
there were
asking for
errors.
information. Nobody was asking for any information that would be considered
Those are the
private
2
by
that
any
were
means.
questioned, right, Mr. Bradley? You wanted clarification. I just gave you the clarification.
Yeah, they were the 2 that were questioned, but Mr. Belt said there were mistakes. That's what I want to know. What was
Well,
the mistake?
I don't
was
know
it
what the- yeah, I
overpaid?
don't know.
Was it underpaid? You don't have to tell me who it was. What was the mistake?
The major mistake, Rita, is that we have a policy.
I didn't ask you, David.
That's good. Well, I'm going to answer you because I'm one of the 9 on this board.
We just
that
wanted
has
to make sure we had
responsibility.
clarification on the 2 that were questioned.
We randomly selected 2, just 2 of the hundreds of bills that pertain to this $2 million. And
Dave,
of
just
those
give
2,
me an answer. I don't want to hear your story. What is your answer? What was wrong with the bills? It's a simple question, even for you. It's a simple question.
they didn't meet the requirements of a board member to approve them with fidelity.
What was missing? Mr. Belt said there were errors on 2 of them.
Correct.
An error is not
No, Rita,
child information.
Rita,
That's not an error.
The process is an error, Rita. The process is an error. Now,
Rita, what I said was we reviewed 2 and there were errors noted on both that we reviewed. I would like a chance to review some more bills.
So but you're not going to tell me what the errors were on the 2 you found. So how am I supposed to believe you, Rusty? You say when we say something and we can't back it up that you can't believe us. Well, that's how I'm feeling right now
No,
because you're not
Dave
telling
says
me
that.
anything.
Dave says that. I don't say that, Rita.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, you're not telling me anything. I don't want a name. I don't want anything confidential. I want to know, was the bill overpaid, underpaid? Was it paid 3 times?
Mr.
Was it
Cleaver,
paid
can we
7
call the
times?
question,
What
please?
was
Can we
the
vote on this?
problem?
I believe we have a motion and a second, Mr. Stern, for clarification.
Yes, we do. Is there a public comment?
Wait, you're still gonna go forward with this and you're not gonna move this to Wednesday like we already decided because Wayne showed up and now you have this
Ms. Bose?
tyranny?
Ms.
You're just
Bose?
gonna shove this through?
Any
Yes,
pertinent
I'm
information?
here.
Yes, Ms. Bose? Yes.
This is pretty underhanded. The motion didn't pass. Let it go. You can't wait 2 lousy days to do it, which is what was done. And you agreed to wait 2 days. This makes you all look really bad.
I didn't agree to wait 2 days at all, Mrs. Bose.
No other comment, Mr. Stern?
Hearing none, we're going to have a roll
Larry,
call vote on payment of bills.
Could I say something?
Yes, you can, Mr. Wentz.
I believe other board members have joined meetings late and were allowed to vote. So this is only in their eyes. They want to take my right away to vote? Not fair. Go ahead with the motion.
No, Wayne, we want to make sure you're responsible prior to voting because you're part of a team
Well,
of a board member
I
that took an oath
now
of
listen.
fidelity. You took an oath of
Oh,
fidelity,
boy.
sir. You're supposed to
Okay,
look at things
you're-
before you pay
Mr. Stern,
them.
can we please
We have
move
all
on?
admitted that nobody
Yes,
looked at
roll
these
call
prior to
vote,
paying
Mr.
them,
Continue.
and here you're trying to shove it through. And you already made the decision, and Larry did say Wednesday was suitable.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley.
No.
What's your bill?
Fail 5-4. Mr. Bradley, your comments?
Under old business, we have a Auditor General's report that discussed a very specific area related to the enforcement of our own policies and the failures of our government board to even be fair enough to follow our own laws that we write. And I don't think anyone on this board is above the law. And yet, when we look at the policies and this argument that you had about it's already been seen and everything else, and then you made the statement, Larry, in this meeting, and I would like to be corrected if I am wrong, that you made a statement that 0 public input was provided because nobody showed up. Was that an accurate depiction of those policies prior to this board's approval?
No, it is not. We did not receive any public comment during the policy meeting on those particular policies, nor have we received any public comment since they have been posted on our website.
Excellent. So the statement is correct. 0 public comment on these policies has been received. We asked for it. We gave them opportunity, but 0 public comment was received. Is that correct?
The only comments we had were at the meeting, and that would have been between yourself, myself, and Mrs. Spinelli.
Excellent. And our policy committee has a responsibility, old business again, that we're supposed to follow our policies. And you, as president, are not supposed to be a committee member, but you're an ad hoc committee member. That's our policy.
You might be interpreting something incorrectly, sir.
Okay, well then you should check that one because it specifically says the president shall be an ex officio member of a policy. So therefore you'd only have 2 on the policy committee. You don't have that third opportunity to make sure that we meet our other policy 011 that says seek public input. So in the event that you have 0 public input, tells me that you've already silenced people enough that they don't want, because it's frustrating to deal with the ranting and somebody has a dissenting opinion. So if you get the result of zero public interest, and we're supposed to be seeking it, that's a failure on our part. We should do a better job. So in old business discussion about the Auditor General's report, we were supposed to enact things within our government to make sure we don't make these mistakes again. Now, we also have in old business a discussion about the application of policy, specifically cyberbullying. And I'd like to have a discussion and possibly a motion on the clarification of our cyberbullying policy and its application, because apparently we had a very significant event that is now published all over the internet with people looking at Lehighton saying we don't follow our own policies. I find that embarrassing. I'd like to make sure we do. I know that I read the policy and shared the proper reading, in my opinion, of the policy that says, in the event that cyberbullying occurs, regardless of the day or time of day that it occurred, it is our responsibility to mitigate those risks and enforce our cyberbullying policies to protect our students. Now, I found that we're failing that as well. So in old business, I'd like to ask two things. One, why are we having zero public comment during our committee meetings? And are we actually silencing the community? And two, why are we not properly applying the cyberbullying policy? And to be clear how this works, we're the board. We hire an administration to administer our policies. The buck stops with us, and we are reportable to those stakeholders, those citizens. So the question becomes, we as a board should ask our administration what we can do and help them so that we can administer our policies where we do get public comment on these policies before we take them and make them, and the application of the policies that we currently have where a discrepancy may or may not have occurred in the application of a policy specifically regarded to cyberbullying and the results of that.
Mr. Bradley, can you tell me where it doesn't matter the time or place and where that's addressed in our policy?
Sure. Can you give me 30 seconds?
I would like to comment just basically, I know we were talking about cyberbullying. I think it's important for the board to know that in the case that individual was happy with the administration and their efforts and addressing the policy as they did, and that administration at the high school was forthcoming and addressed it in a manner that was timely and conclusive. So with that being said, I believe our administration and our policy did exactly what it's supposed to do, even though Mr. Bradley may not agree.
Mr. Filer, I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there were many or several lawsuits by students for school districts trying to access them outside of school business and school property for things. And so now Mr. Bradley's telling us our policy says anywhere, anytime. Wouldn't that be a contradiction?
Mrs. Spinelli, I believe you're referring to the Mono Area School District that's currently in front of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Where the board essentially tried to act like the thought police and punish speech that was occurring outside of school district. If I could draw Mr. Bradley's attention to the authority section of our anti-bullying, it will say that we prevent bullying on school grounds, at school sanctioned activities, or during the time where a student would be reasonably going to or coming from the school. We are not the thought police. We don't have 24-hour jurisdictions over the children. I don't know why we would want that, and I don't know why we would seek to have that.
Okay, I found the policy for you. I'll read it, and then you tell me what you guys think. Because I agree, this is a discussion. This should be deliberated by a board of individuals in a community that are serving as government officials. But it says, under guidelines, parents and guardians shall contact the building principal to report acts of bullying. Then it says, the next sentence, and here, this is very important. Reports from parents or guardians and or students of bullying occurring outside of school-related hours shall be investigated when it is impacting school safety or the educational environment. Appropriate steps shall be taken to ensure student safety. We have students in this community that have been injured as a result of hazing, bullying, and now we're allowing cyberbullying to occur when we should be investigating the matters and dealing with it because they are children. Our administration should be dealing with these instances in a way that prevents them from harming the safety of our students. We should be dealing with it. It might be how you deal with it. Hey, that's up for discussion. It might be a phone call. Please don't do that anymore. That was a bad choice. If we enacted the social emotional learning, why are you cutting me off?
Speech
Are you mad?
limitations.
Are you mad that I'm reading the guidelines out loud? What are you mad at?
No, I'm mad that you make policy up.
I'm not making this up. It says right here, we should be investigating it. And in my opinion, if our administration did not investigate this matter and then deal with it properly, the board should have some oversight with it. The community should have some oversight with it. We should know whether or not our board is going to protect students when we've had a rash of not protecting our students. And the wagons get circled and the poor student suffers, and it's wrong. Luckily, I agree with the concept that this student is incredibly strong and did not have an issue. However, I also recognize that we will not be so lucky in the future, and our responsibility to administer these policies properly should be taken. And the method to which this instance occurred and the way it was pushed aside and not properly investigated is part of the reason we have so much trouble in our community. And if you want me to read further, under the investigation procedures, consequences and disciplines, and the confidentiality standard, they're all in our policies. I don't believe that they were applied properly. I think our district should review whether or not we applied it. Now, it's not only my opinion, because apparently there's other people within the state that have published our policy and what took place.
They published the portion of the policy and ignored the authority section. They picked and chose what portions fit their narrative, Mr. Bradley.
Are you claiming our policy is ambiguous, capricious, and arbitrary?
No, I'm claiming our policy is clear, but people ignore portions that they don't like.
And are you ignoring the part where we have a responsibility to investigate?
Are you ignoring the part where the other students have the right to freedom of speech?
I'm fully agree that they have a right to a freedom of speech, but we also recognize kids can't go in a movie theater and yell fire. So we do know there's a line there between freedom of speech and threats, freedom of speech and cyberbullying, freedom of speech and harming a student. And we recognize
if anyone
that.
believes they are a victim of a threat, they should be reporting it to the police.
They should be doing both, and we agree, and I believe that took place. However, our responsibility is to recognize what are our students doing and how do we write policy to hopefully educate students to not make these bad choices. They're bad choices. That's all they are. We teach people to walk across the street and check both ways. Why? How come nobody puts their finger in a socket anymore? We train these things. We can teach our students not to cyberbully. And we can also recognize that when we have a policy that says don't do it, investigate it, so we can learn how and why things happen, we can mitigate those risks. We can protect these students better by supervising
Mr.
them.
Bradley, can we start that cyberbullying right now and have you stop this? Because I feel bullied every time you start this. The district feels bullied every time you start this. Let's start right now with you right here and stop the bullying. Once you made your comment, all the editorializing in the world isn't going to change it.
That's only because you're obstinate and you don't understand how to use logic and reason to look at a problem that's in front of you and then solve it. And the fact that you're missing
I
that,
think we have
the fact that you're
discussed this
missing that is
particular
why I
item
want your
enough.
resignation. Because you
We've
do need to look at
discussed
bills.
this item
You do
enough.
need to look at the
Let's
policies
go on
before you
to
approve them. Why are you
Mr.
shutting
Cleaver,
up? I'm
let's
still
go on
having
to
this
new
conversation.
business.
This is old business,
Under new
guys.
business,
Why aren't
we
you-
would
why
like,
aren't
I
you
see,
going with the old
we have the
business?
discussion for grades 9 through 12 to return 5 days per week. I'm sure you're aware that many districts throughout the area are currently moving this in this direction. Just for the board's understanding, we currently have 666 students at the high school. 431 of them are what are considered hybrid, which mean every other day. We have 48 who are in our LAVA program, our LAVA Canvas, to where the teachers are working with the students, and we have 138 students who are currently full virtual. What we are discussing, and really would like to recommend that on Tuesday, coming back off the spring break, that the students who are virtual and hybrid come back to school every day. So students in the A and B schedule would be returning every day, and then additional virtual students who wish to return and come back every day. Currently, we do see some attendance issues that we're running into that we've been addressing and having attendance meetings on a daily basis. We've had several parents actually email administration at the high school requesting that the students come back 5 days a week as well. And I'm sure everyone is aware that the CDC has loosened the 6 feet now to 3 feet for the social distancing. However, I would like to, with this, we are still going to do it to the greatest extent possible and stay within that 3 feet. So if there's classes that have less kids, of course we would do more, but in the event we would keep the restriction to that 3 feet. And again, it's open for discussion or questions.
I guess my question, Mr. Cleaver, would be mask protocol still in place?
Yes, that is mandatory. Yep. The mask would not change. It would be required as we are required by law.
And the documents we live by and the rules from PDE concerning cases, those types of things.
Yes, that all stays. That also stays as well. I do have Sue in too as well to address any questions you may have from the board. Sue, could you hear us?
I think we're all in support of
Yes,
returning
I
to
can.
5 days a week. I think everyone's in support of that. Everyone understands we have the greatest teachers and the greatest classrooms. We should put our kids in them. I don't know if there's any other discussion on that, but I would love to hear everybody's opinion.
At this point, Mike, satisfied? Is there any comments?
This is Nathan. My only comment is I think being able to get the high school back.
Screen turned off.
The high school back in would be a great step forward. With one student in the high school, I've seen firsthand the challenges, even with everything our teachers are doing. It's been a challenging situation. I'm glad that we're at the point where we can make that happen and do it safely.
I do have a comment from the public, Mr. Stern. Ms. Sittler? Yes, Ms. Sittler?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. Since the CDC is starting to loosen up its restrictions, a lot of students will probably be returning to public school who may have gone to cyber school this past year. Are you guys going to have the teachers to handle this?
Yes, we would. We currently we have an additional 100 students, so we would have the teachers to handle this, even if all those students did not return back to in-person education.
But I'm saying next year, the next school year, if all the students that left the district, not technically left the district, but left the brick and mortar buildings, who went to CCA, who went to Connections, if all of those students return, will we have enough teachers? Because I do know some weren't hired back, and I do know some resigned.
Yes, we would have enough staff to do that. We currently have staff members right now who are just doing cyber programs because of within our own district. So those teachers will be put back into the classrooms as well as those numbers come down.
Okay, that's a very big concern for many of the parents. What's going to be happening when the kids go back to school now that they're hopefully going to be allowed and everything's going to be back to normal, allegedly.
Keep our fingers crossed for that normal for sure.
All right, thank you.
Is there any other comment, Mr. Cleaver?
Yes, there is. Dashay Zelrick?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, at the beginning of the school year, we had to put together a plan of education for Harrisburg as to how we would run the school year. Each of the school levels had their own, and the high school was a hybrid, and that depending on what the COVID numbers were, we would either be all virtual or hybrid. Since we started the school as a hybrid, how can we return to 5 days per week if that's what our plan was for this school year for high school, was to be a hybrid?
We are still required, even though a hybrid, that a certain count of positive cases within that 14-day rolling average, we would then have to move to a virtual setting. So those rules, when we did that attestation form back in November, still are part of it. So if we would have, those case numbers, we would have to move temporarily to a full virtual model, and we still have to follow those rules.
May I interject for 1 second? Hi, it's Sue.
Yes.
Dashay and everyone else. In reference to that question, I think you're also referring to originally high school presented the hybrid model because of the 6 feet CDC had recommended and the social distancing. Obviously, with the reduction now anywhere from 3 to 6, obviously we'd like not to be at 3. 6 would be maximum. Would be the best option. However, we think we can comfortably get anywhere between 4 and 5. The areas such as cafeteria and those things obviously would be dicey. However, we have overflow of that right now. Currently, we have students eating in our auditorium. By putting desks back in classrooms, we'd be able to free up more space in our cafeteria, getting more students, and also we'll turn the lobby area into probably a cafeteria area, and we'll come up with some creative solutions in the next, pretty much a week and a half, if this is what's voted on tonight, to make sure that we still are spacing, masks are wearing, and we're still following guidelines, because obviously our biggest concern is the health and safety of all our students and staff.
Okay, so does that mean that we're going to create a whole new plan for the high school?
The nurses, if depending on what is determined here this evening, the nurses, myself, and then Mr. Cleaver have all discussed that we'd go back and look at the health and safety plan and make adjustments. Obviously, it's been tweaked all year long.
Yep, as part of following the guidance of the CDC and everything, there's been tweaks that have been taking place, throughout the year with it.
Okay.
Yep, the health and safety plan was just the original for opening, and then any type of adjustments were permitted within that. The only thing that is locked in is when that attestation form was signed, you're under the guidelines of those regulations.
So we have to resubmit this to Harrisburg for
No,
approval?
we just make the adjustments, and there's no reason to resubmit it.
Okay, thank you.
No other comments at this time.
Okay, I guess, Mr. Cleaver, we would need a motion for that activity. Is that correct?
Yes, we would. Just for this, because of the large change that it is. Yes, we would please recommend the motion.
Larry, could I say one thing before we vote?
Well,
This is
let
Steve.
me get the motion out, Steve. How's that?
Okay, that's fine.
Need a motion and a second for the Lehighton Area High School to resume 5 days per week school instruction beginning April 6th, 2021. I need a motion and a second, please.
So
So
moved,
moved,
Rusty.
Nathan.
Second.
A second.
Yeah, I'm we're speaking over, so I have a second by Nathan. Was it a first by
Rusty, so moved.
Rusty? Okay, I got a first by Rusty, a second by, first by Mr. Belt, a second by Mr. Fuller. Mr. Holland, you had a comment?
My comment is, I think the students would work very, very hard to make this happen. They want to be with their friends. So I believe in the students. I believe that they want to be with their peers. They want to get to see one another. So that's my comment. I think they can really do well because they want to be with their friends. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. And I think it is a tribute to the student and the staffs that we have and how they have been adhering to all the restrictions. I'm sure Mrs. Holland could speak to that as well.
Sure.
Any other
You know,
comments?
we've not had any, you know, for the most part, our students have been excellent with all the guidelines since the beginning of the year. Many of the students have requested wanting to come back in the building. Obviously, we're not doing it just strictly because of the request, but as we know, guidelines have been being eased and ultimately we'll make sure everyone's, you know, safe. But most importantly, it's getting students back into a structure and routine and hopefully being able to provide, you know, the best educational platform, which is getting them in a classroom and in front of our teachers. Unfortunately, you know, the virtual Zoom is still going to be there because we'll still have some students Zooming. And unfortunately, it's worked out really well for us, but it'll still add an increased stressor with our staff. But I feel that they're very capable of pulling this off and managing as they've done for almost now a little bit over a year. Done a great job adjusting and tweaking, and I think we'll continue to do that. The best key here is structure and stability for the kids and staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. Is there any other comments on the board? Would there be a public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
At this time, Mr. Stern, oh, excuse me, hold on. Ms. Bose?
Let's get them back in school. Get them learning the right way. We have great teachers, let them teach. That's my only comment.
No other comments, Mr. Stern?
Okay, then I'll entertain a roll call vote. Ms. Bertinio, please.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern. 9 yes, motion carries.
I'll move on to director's concerns, which we've had none provided by the,
I have one.
okay, one.
Actually, I'll make it two. Sorry. So, first of all, I'm going to read 3 sentences to you, and then you guys can decide what you want to do from there. They all come from our policy under cyberbullying, and they're in contradiction to Mr. Filer's reading. And he can change his mind if he likes, or he can stick to his guns. Let's find out. So if the first thing is under definitions, all forms of cyberbullying are unacceptable to the extent that such actions are disruptive to the education process of the district. Offenders shall be the subject of appropriate discipline. And then under authority, which is the part he was reading, it shall be a violation of this policy for any student to bully another person on district property, at any school activity, or on the way to or from school, which we agree with Mr. Filer on that. We can't be a helicopter outside of our jurisdiction. But then it goes on to say, under authority, the school district will not tolerate any acts of bullying occurring on school district property, at school-sponsored activities scheduled on or off school property, and during the time a student necessarily spends traveling to and from school or school-sponsored activities. This bullying occurred as a result of a club that this board authorized. So it's a school-sponsored activity, in my opinion.
No, it's not.
Okay, please explain why. We'd love to hear your opine on that comment. Go ahead. Why aren't we going to protect the students?
There was no school-sponsored event. There was no school-sponsored activity. That particular club made a post, and then people responded on social media to that post. That's outside our jurisdiction. I have no idea why in the world you want to take responsibility for students' conduct outside of the school.
For school-related events, I think it's important. I think we should protect the
Right.
students.
And if there's bullying occurring at a football game, if there's bullying occurring at a band concert, if there's bullying occurring at something that the school is actively involved in, I would agree with you, Mr. Bradley, but that's not what occurred here.
Was it cyberbullying, sir?
Actually, I think it was all protected First Amendment speech, what I've seen.
Okay, well, you're really taking a reach there. But all forms of cyberbullying are unacceptable.
Terms bullying and cyberbullying shall not be interpreted to infringe upon the student's rights to engage in legally protected speech or conduct.
Correct. Legally protected rights. Are you the Supreme Court in this regard?
If I had to put money on my opinion versus yours, I'm betting on me every time.
I'm definitely not the Supreme Court, and that's a shame because you lose all the time at OOR, but that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're on the record.
That's a lie.
We're on the record. No, it's not. You do a lot. So it's on the record that we are not going to protect this student. I'm trying.
No, we're not going to go on the record.
Mr. Bradley, there is nothing on the record. Do not put words in.
Do you have another concern, Mr.
Do you have
Bradley?
any other
Yes,
concerns?
yes, please. Thank you. So we just authorized graduation. I want to ensure that we're going to have parking be provided by an organization that does parking, so we don't have our students being responsible for the parking of cars on school property. And then secondly, I would really like for the board members that fail to meet these policy requirements to apologize to this public and resign. And I also want to make sure that when these bus drivers, since we voted that it's pending, that information gets provided to the board and doesn't get forgotten as it has in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. On to Curtis. Is there any courtesy?
Will you qualify that, Mr. Stern? And will we be providing
courtesy of
transportation
the-
next year? Will we be
courtesy of the
providing
floor
transportation
for
next year?
Ms.
Larry?
Bose?
Larry, will we
Ms.
be
Bose has
providing
requested
transportation next
courtesy
year?
of the floor.
Okay, a number of positions have been eliminated. An example, in the business office, and the former business administrator has resigned. I'd like to know how this affects the funds that were used to maintain middle school sports by Act 93 employees taking a pay freeze for the 2021 school year. Has it had an impact?
Not sure I understand your question, Mrs. Bose. The freeze that the administration took would not be included in those two positions that were eliminated because they were not here as of the end of August.
Okay, well, it did say the Act 93 employee
Right.
took a pay freeze. I just didn't know if they were Act 93 employees. That's why.
They were they were Act 93 employees, yes, but their positions are eliminated and have not been replaced for, the school year.
Okay, so that doesn't affect the funding of the middle school sports, correct?
I don't know that I could say it doesn't affect any type of funding because it was never budgeted. It was budgeted as if they didn't exist after August.
Right, but
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, if I remember the meeting correctly, the fact that the Act 93 employees took a pay freeze was allowing us to still offer middle school sports. And
that helped. Yes, that helped with the line item for middle school sports. That is correct.
Right, and that's what I'm asking. Did the elimination of those positions, and Ed wasn't part of that, and he would be an Act 93 employee, so therefore he didn't.
No, Mr. Eric is not Act 93. He has his own contract.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, business managers and superintendents are not part of Act 93 now.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that, so thank you for the clarification. Next question is about the money received for COVID relief. I'd like to know, did you receive the 2.49 million that was provided previously?
I will have to go to Mr. Rarick for that, but I don't believe we have received. And again, that's what I tell. Just because you see it in writing doesn't mean that any type of deposit has been made. So I will ask Mr.
I know,
Rarick.
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so the ESSER 2 funding, which was approximately for Lehighton $2.4 million, that application process closes December of this year. So we haven't finalized the application on that. So that money wouldn't be received until it was sent into PDE and approved by PDE, the actual expenditure.
Okay, so that wouldn't be approved till at the earliest December then, is what you're saying, right?
Well, we could submit anytime between now and December.
Okay. What about the $5+ million that was just in the relief plan that we're supposedly getting? Is there any idea on when that process will be started?
That application process has not opened yet. From my recent webinar with PASBO, I'm told that the state of Pennsylvania is probably going to hold 10% of that and put it toward our basic education funding. And then 20% would have to be used to put towards learning loss. But that application has not opened yet in PDE, so we can in the grant system, so we cannot apply for that one yet.
Okay, now is it known, other than the 20% and the 10%, of course, that the state will take, is it known what restrictions are on that money?
Other than the 20%, there hasn't been much discussion as to what applicable expenditures can be applied for those monies allocated.
Okay, because from what I've read, you will have till 2024 to spend it. But there hasn't been a lot said other than that, a little bit here and there, but it hasn't been very clear. So they haven't made it clear to you then yet either, is what you're saying.
No, that is correct. So the deadline actually for use is September of 2023, which coincides with ESSER 2 funding. But they're saying that there's some federal rule or law that allows an extension of that through, which allows one more year, which would take us to September of 2024. So it is a very short timeline to use that allocation of money. But no, you are correct. There hasn't been much clarification on, there hasn't been like a specific list as to you can use it towards, whatever type of funding you want to use it towards.
Right now with the ESSER 2, that's the 2.49 million, correct?
That's correct.
Right. I was speaking more of the 5 million, which you probably have received even less information on. So All right.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah.
Those were my two questions. Now, when you do receive information, it would be nice to have the community informed on all of that, whatever restrictions there's going to be, and then the plan for it, if possible. I would
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other comment, Cleaver?
Yes, we do. Mr. Kraus?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just would love to hear a little bit at some meeting about the achievement with our students. I know we were one of the few elementaries that went back to in-person instruction. And I realized that the pandemic kind of went across 2 school years, and the testing was suspended to some degree, but I just would like to hear about, how our students are doing, how they've adapted, what, not a detailed report like we've had in the past from the curriculum director, but just more of an overview of how you feel things are going and the administration feels that we've managed through this whole pandemic. Thank you.
Yes, we could prepare that and have something ready for the next academic admin meeting. Mr. Geiger? Yes, Mr. Geiger?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Geiger?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to thank everybody on the board for all their hard work through the pandemic and making sure all the students were safe and making sure that making the big transition to cyber was taken care of. And, everybody does this for free. And I think they are to be commended for all the hard work that they've put into this as well. My only comment is I find it irrehensible and incomprehensible that our board and its citizens are subjected tonight a lecture by a person that's claiming cyberbullying is wrong and inappropriate, yet all the YouTube videos are posted, social media posts, and a majority of board comments month after month are nothing but bullying. Thank you.
Ms. Sittler? Oh, Ms. Sittler?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question. It pertains to the children going back to school full time. Since this past year, we had the busing issues with originally not having buses. Are you guys planning on providing buses for the district for the 21-22 school year? Have you guys thought about that yet? Is there any plan?
That will all be part of the discussion when we have our budget meetings, because of that being, part of the budget. So as far as anything of that type of discussion will be, part of the budget meeting as we continue to move at budget committee meetings. And then, of course, with the preliminary budget, and then, of course, the final budget.
Okay, my next question would be, are you guys planning on more students coming back now that they're allowed to be in school full time, at least for now anyway? Are you guys going to take into consideration that you'll probably have more students returning to the brick and mortar schools, that you might need additional buses?
At this point, we currently do have all students back for K-8. So we're not concerned there, and the capacity is limited, has been very minimal at the secondary level, and we've already been in contact with Leon that there's no concern of additional students coming back for the high school.
Not for the next school year? You don't think there's
next school year?
Yeah, I'm talking about next school year.
No, we didn't get to that discussion yet. No, ma'am.
Okay, so when are you planning on letting the public know? Are you going to do the same thing you did this past year and wait till the last minute? Are you guys going to be upfront and have your, your T's crossed and your I's dotted?
again, that will all be part of the budget planning. As far as, Mr. George, he's always prepared to give us the information that we need, moving forward. So, again, we have not had any type of discussion. I could say that at least I haven't had any type of discussion regarding transportation for next year at this time, but knowing that will be part of the discussion moving forward with budget discussions.
Because personally, and from what people talk, I'm pretty sure you guys lost a lot of students because of the busing issue. I would hate for that to happen to the district again. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further comments, Mr. Stern.
Very good. Thank you for the comments. Thanks for attending this evening. I will take a motion to adjourn in a second. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to do the second?
Second, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne. We got a motion in a second. To adjourn the
Thank you,
meeting
everyone.
at
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
9:35. Thank you very much for attending.